Hello, everybody. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Recap on the storm that occurred yesterday, the 1st and the 12th of 2023. Very active day. 36 tornadoes reported. Extremely active before the sun come up and stayed active until the sun went down. With the majority of the damage being as I predicted the day before, the central portion of Alabama, just south of I-20. But we're going to start up here in Kentucky. So these little markers are hail markers. So you have 1 inch, 1.7 inch. That's about a hen egg. Like this markers for 1 inch magnitude, it was sourced through public. More than likely went through a Twitter post. Then you have these little markers, which are supposed to be like little houses where the roof's getting blown off. I don't know why Omega uses that, but it is what it is. And this is source 911 call, gives the county, tree reported across the road. That's reported wind damage. And then we're going to be focusing on these tornadoes. These little triangle, red triangle movements are tornadoes reported. We're going to start with the morning event, and we're going to work our way all the way from Kentucky down into Alabama, across Mississippi, into Georgia and South Carolina. Hopefully I can do this all in 10 minutes. I highly doubt it, but we'll see. So the first tornado that had been reported was in Cairo, Illinois. I believe this rated EF1. Okay, this is the one that has not been reported yet. Has not been rated yet. This would go under the Petulia, Kentucky radar site. I'm pretty sure they've got other things to deal with. They did have another tornado. I believe this is the one that was rated EF1, just north of the center. Yep, EF1, 90 mile an hour. Loss of sightings, many trees snapped. All in all, these were extremely weak tornadoes that happened right at daylight. A lot of very active days, you'll see this begin to happen very, very early in the morning. You begin to get what's referred to as latent heating. All it is whenever the sun comes up, you're getting heat. So that creates a different version of CAPE. So you're bringing your CAPE, which is convective available potential energy, up at that point, and you're beginning to build cells. So that's what occurred across Kentucky and the very southern part of Illinois yesterday morning. Not unusual. Like you look back at the last event that happened in Texas, the Decatur event that happened right at daylight. Not an unusual thing to occur. Then I've had people ask me why this doesn't occur, and then you go through like a dead zone, and then you go into the core part of what's going to happen as the tornado outlook. Well, the reason that happens is because whenever you add warmth to the atmosphere, you're bringing up updraft. So you begin to get very violent cells growing above the 40,000 foot sectors. Whenever this occurs, you get a small pocket of an hour or two there that weaker tornadoes are capable in the southwesternly if the jet's locked in, which yesterday and the Decatur event were both days. We had the jet locked in really early. It was locked in the day before for both events. So you had the shearing, you just needed the CAPE. And that can happen at daylight. Well, whenever you move into it gets warmer than the dew points, well, these cells are suppressed. You've created a moisture cap because your dew points are down here and your temperature's slowly rising as the sun goes up, and the moisture level needs to catch up to it. So you begin to get 6, let's say 5 to 8 in the morning is whenever this usually occurs. That's when these kind of occurred. Well, this one actually happened overnight. It was a weaker cell. Some of the ones will look more to the east. This is a normal pattern. uh, you get in that perfect area to where cells can go up, but it only sustains for a very small period of time, and then you'll see a decrease because your moisture needs to build back, and then you need to have the dew points meet back the temperature to create condensation. You can have the world's best shearing environment. You can have the world's best cape. I mean, everything just looks perfect for 2 mile wide wedges. If the dew point doesn't meet the temperature, you do not get condensation. No condensation, no clouds, no tornado. Day's over. That kind of happened in Texas, the 11th. As I referred to on the Facebook page, we had an active capping. That's actually a temperature capping. It's a little different how that works, but yeah. Then there was another one reported later into the morning. I know one of them was pretty close to Louisville. Yeah, right here. And this one has not been rated. Actually, it has been, but they don't give the rating. 110-mile-an-hour winds would be an EF2. So the survey, for some reason they didn't put that in the write-up, but that would be rated EF2. And that was just east of Louisville, Kentucky. Then you have one more over the range. This was towards the later part of the day. If I remember right, yep, 8 in the morning. This is that whole cycle I was talking about that occurs early in the morning. And this one was rated 100 mile an hour. That's going to be EF1, the strong side. So as you can see, these were all very weak tornadoes that happened between 2 in the morning and 8 in the morning. Well, we're going to go down and talk about the reinitiations that occurred in Mississippi. Mississippi was lucky. They stayed out of the majority of everything. About 10 in the morning, numerous different reports of wind damage around Hattiesburg as storms fired south of I-20, and another line had fired right around Tupelo. If I do remember right, the first warning was right here for Aberdeen, if I remember right. Yeah, that'd have been like 6:40 in the morning. These cells continued to move and produced tornadoes across the Double Springs, Haleyville area. I don't know if any of these have been reported or rated yet. This one's been reported, not rated. This is south of Haleyville. Then up in that little corner around Double Springs, trees, power lines down. This all sounds like EF1 damage. Like, this is, there's something there, but it's not, catastrophic by any means. Damage reported to residents. Yeah, that's not anything big. Probably more than likely roof damage more than anything. That because your mark would be, interior walls gone or something like that. That would give you more of a hint, EF3 style damage. Trees down. This line was pretty weak moving through this area. I had covered it on the page. If I remember right, it went from Aberdeen, and then it reinitiated later in the day up here around Scottsboro, moving into just west of Chattanooga. So it moved basically right along this line. Right into the interface of the mountain range. That makes 100%, understanding of why that occurred. This area is one of the more violent hit areas in the world. One of the strongest tornadoes in history hit Phil Campbell, Alabama. Hamilton's been hit. I've been on numerous in Double Springs. I've been on ones in Haleyville, Russellville. This little pocketed area right here is extremely violent. And a lot of that's just because you get this mountain range coming out north of Chattanooga. It's pushing extreme shear along this line, and kind of leads to this area becoming hugely Massive tornado threat. Uh, Not really an unusual thing. The rest of the cells that came across here were all, there were warnings up here, but as they died out, became a wind threat. This is all micro damage. So as the cells begin to decompose, they became a large wind threat. In this little pocket, the northeastern section above I-20 in Alabama, and these are the big boy cells. As I was saying in my post, that the greater damage lied along I-20, south of Tuscaloosa and north of Montgomery. As you can see, that was a hotbed for 3 lines, and I had said this on my stream that I'd had before I had to go do some other stuff, but that I had expected 3 cells. And this one was active during the stream, moving north of Livingston area. I believe this is the one that, hit Gainesville right here. These were minor touches, if I remember right, and this is the one that hit Oak Grove or Oak Village. Oak Village. And this cell kind of dissipated, and as you can see, we've got another cell right here. This is whenever we were moving out of tornadoes on ground. Some of these were pretty bad damage. The Greensboro. I would say this tornado probably should have toted the PDS, particularly life dangerous tornado threat. But I was saying that on my stream too, that, this looks very violent on radar. And then you have one, the one that moved north of Montgomery. This one stayed active all the way from around Sweetwater was where it was warned, and then started a northern movement. And of course, this was the big boy, the Soma tornado. Pretty much leveled that town. Extreme amounts of damage. I'm sure there's no reports on this already. The videos I've seen from LSM, I would say this is more than likely a very strong EF3. Could get rated EF4, more than likely a really strong EF3. Definitely a life-threatening tornado, and this tornado caught the tornadic emergency, which is a class 4 tornado warning. And then the cell continued to go and started to move here, and the last time it was on the ground was Griffin, real close to their airport. So, Griffin, Georgia. Wrong area. It's up here. Significant damage to give, numerous structures damaged. Yeah, that was a public report. And later in the day, we continued to have that same line begun to be very linear and kind of folded out and gave a lot of wind damage across North Carolina, South Carolina. There were warnings up in this area. Of course, Greenwood had one. Usually you're going to get warnings here south of Spartanburg if much of anything happens in South Carolina. And that's just because the same thing I was talking about before. You have this large mountain range up around Charlotte. It's pushing down the air, and you begin to get rotation. They were really lucky the cells had decayed to a point they were not capable of producing tornadoes. They were very high in wind, and that's the reason you have wind reports through this area. But this area of South Carolina, the northern portion, got extremely lucky yesterday overall. Alabama did not. And there was the loose little cell that went up north of Hammond area. I believe it was right around here. Bogulis, if I remember right. This cell was really hard to watch because the Slidell radar site, which is the New Orleans radar site, right here is currently being remanaged, so it's currently laying on the ground in pieces. So we did not have the Slidell radar site yesterday, and a lot of this was really hard to cover. New Orleans office did the warning releases with the Lake Charles radar site and the Mobile radar site. But there's a huge gap right here until the 16th that's open. because Slidell's radar site is laying on the ground in pieces. Every now and then the radars have to be tore apart, and some of the new systems that are coming in are very, very good for technology and good for detection of severe weather. But the radar sometimes had to be tore apart for these pieces to be put in, and that's kind of what's happening in Slidell. This has already happened to the radar site in Fort Polk. This has already happened to Jackson, has been tore apart. It was put in Lake Charles because that is the main from the TORAD radar in Oklahoma City. The next rad there, it's called the Testbed radar site. They took the main from it and put it in Lake Charles after Hurricane Laura, and it got the upgrade. Houston probably will not get the upgrade, I don't think, and they have not done it to Crawley yet neither, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth radar. And Shreveport is currently down. Yeah, it's actually an overrun. They're probably doing upgrades with software. But back to what we were talking about. These were the three lines that I was talking about that I had expected to be tornadic. Of course, most people has probably heard about Selma, Alabama. Let's see what the reports were. Numerous reports of tornadoes of Selma with trees and structure damage. And what's the other one? Heavy damage reported to the country club. Yeah, I seen video of that. Roof completely taken off. And structural damage to walls. Definitely F3 style damage. And as you can see, it moved right through the center of the city. And kind of dissipated right before it met the larger part of the city, which is a good thing. But they had numerous fires in that area from what I had heard due to there were butane lines cut by the tornado and created explosions and fires, which whenever tornadoes hit large cities, that's a usual outcome. You usually have stuff like butane occurring in the air, and all it takes is like a spark from something, and the tornado can snap it and then spark something after it, and there can be fire rotating in the tornado. I've seen that occur in the past, so that's not an unusual outcome. Reported in Orvilleville. Yeah, so whenever I was on the stream, this is the one that was above Meridian, and I was talking about going probably dissipating before it hit 95, and that's exactly pretty much the track we seen occur here. I really hate the name of this town. We're gonna use that, but most of these have not been rated. They'll be rated by Birmingham today. More than likely, the larger tornadoes will be rated within the next 3 or 4 days. But this tornado moved across, and this is probably, yeah, the Oak Village tornado. I remember watching this one on stream and talking about that it had recycled. And this was a brief touchdown, if I remember right. Yep. South of Moundville. Then hangar. Poured debris. Yeah, this is the one that was south of Donkinville. I remember that one. And then just a couple hours later, the one that came across just south of Meridian, and like I was saying on the stream, was going to turn north. Moved over to Denapolis and started to turn just west of Denapolis. So right in here, somewhere between Livingston and Denapolis. Because it moved over Livingston, creating 1-inch hail. It was tornado warned. It was more of a TOR, possible tornado. And then moved down into Denapolis. Moved north of Denapolis and started to produce tornadic. So, whenever your shearing's moving southwesternly along this line, like this, These cells that are moving west, like the one that went over Livingston, this is not an exact era because it went more like the. That's more the track that it took. A lot of this is due to two things. Okay, so as you can see, we have this mountain range right here. Well, that's pushing it down in a way. As you can see, you have a little couplet here. So the loss of topography is going to move it either way. But until it gets to where it's moving relatively north-northeast and gets into that heavy shear bracket, tornadoes are unlikely. It was capable, more than likely what occurred the first warning was you had shearing cutting across this mountain, and that created that warning that occurred right here over Livingston. And then as it moved up, it got into the better shearing as it went into Greensboro, and that's where your tornado started. Pretty easy prediction there. That's not way out there kind of meteorology stuff. A lot of times, if you really know weather, you can pretty well predict where they're going to happen or be in a relative area of where they're going to happen. That's something as a chaser you really have to be well aware of. I've heard people say, I've been chasing for 31 years now. I've heard people say, well, all it is go grab a camera and just run out there. Well, that's a complete misnomer. Before we chase, I usually have anywhere from 90 to 120 hours forecast side before we ever get in the car. And I'm constantly forecasting in the car. Constantly. I mean, it's not just grab a camera. I'm not going to say you couldn't, grab a camera and run out there and you could find one. It could happen if it happened in your back door. If you live in Hattiesburg, oh yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, you got 4 shots a year guaranteed. I mean, Stevie Wonder get the picture. But for a normal area, I mean, this area is pretty much a hotbed right along 20 into Montgomery. This area usually takes tornadoes 2 or 3 times a year. It's not unrare. I explained the topography reasons of why this occurs. This area, yeah, you might be able to, but truth of the matter is location to the tornado takes a lot more than just drive out there and look at it. I mean, there's so much more involved. And this was the third one. I had left to have lunch by this point. I had predicted a cell forming right around Waynesboro on the stream south of Laurel, moving north-northeast, and that would be this cell that, of course, was on the ground in Orvilleville and then pretty much slayed Selma. In the video that I had seen, I was eating whenever it occurred. I was watching it on radar. Massive tornado. The debris ball was over almost 3 miles wide whenever it moved through here. Massive. These were pretty large tornadoes as it kind of tapered off too. And then continued into LaGrange, Georgia. This was a pretty good sized tornado from what I've seen. There was numerous structure damage that occurred right along I-85. Okay. I've been to LaGrange, but it's been a long time. That would be what? Yeah. And there's Newnan where last year's massive tornado occurred. One of them. 2 biggest tornadoes of last year was Newnan, Georgia, and Northeast Texas. There were a couple that were pretty large. And this one went right over an airport, from what I'd heard. Or maybe there was one. There was one that went over the airport in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, like right through here, but it was not on the ground. It was very close. I've seen numerous iPhone videos on Twitter about it. uh, it had taken kind of a track above this area through College Park and was kind of moving along this line as it went north. And it was seeable from the central part of the airport as it just moved along. Never touched the ground, but was definitely a very effective, uh, scary as oh my god kind of moment for people that were there. And then everything just kind of dissipates in the northeastern side. There were a couple warnings here. There was one for Milledgeville as it moved towards Augusta area, but not much come from that. It was pretty weak rotation. And these down here were very weak from what I've heard. Also mobile home down. Yeah, okay. So this sounds like EF1, maybe EF2, and this is Mount Vernon. That's going to be Alabama, just barely. We got to kind of zoom out a little bit because Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, they all sit right there real close together. Right there along 10. And this one was a very weak tornado in Blue Springs. The National Weather Service had looked over this. The office in Mobile has been over it, and these are possibly going to be declared high wind events because there was a lot of wind occurring in this area. They think these may have been wind events, but we'll see how that goes. Whenever they start to raid, I'll make another video, and man, this is like almost 30 minutes long. Everybody, have a blessed day. Hopefully I gave you some information. If anybody watched this whole video, I will give you a thumbs up because I'm not particularly the world's greatest talker. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you all for watching. Like and share. Follow. Please. Definitely helps the channel. Trying to get there. Trying to get something done. Thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here.